Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is the co-founder and president of Arsenal Strength. Today's guest is Andrew Hall. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Quentin. Glad to be here, man.
For sure. So Andrew, I'm really excited. I've had a lot of top level coaches, a lot of IFBB pros and top level amateurs on the podcast. This is actually the first person. You're the first one that's kind of behind the scenes in terms of strength equipment and producing it. So this is going to be a unique podcast. I'm really excited. I'm still going to kind of start things off like I normally do with all my other guests. So a couple questions to start things off with. Who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
I think my top favorite is the man behind you on your wall. I would say Dorian Yates is probably my all-time favorite. Ronnie Coleman, you can't help but, Ronnie with the size and the symmetry and the conditioning. And then honestly, this is cliche because he's a close friend, but Flex Lewis, he's one of the greatest of all time. And then when you actually know him, it just makes it even that more special. So.
Excellent. Now, Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman, both of them come up very often, kind of depending upon the age group of my guests. If it's more kind of like our age group, 30s, early 40s, most of the time Dorian Yates is the first, or at least one of the top ones. For you personally, Andrew, why Dorian Yates?
I think just how he trained and just what he brought. Bodybuilding is evolving. The guys now they're enormous. Their conditioning's crazy, but there's something about that look, like in the late, that 90s look, that's just, you had the shape with the size and the conditioning. I just like the way he trained. He's kind of under the radar. I don't know. There's a lot of things about the way he not only looked, but how he trained and carried himself that I respect a lot.
Excellent. All right. Second question here, just to kind of kick things off. At what age did you start lifting weights, Andrew? And then why?
So my father got me into the gym when I was 15. I'm now 39, which is crazy. So I've been in the gym about 25 years. The reason that I started was, bonding with my father, but mainly for sports and baseball. Baseball was my jam. And anything that could help, from a speed and strength, explosiveness in baseball, that was the main reason for lifting.
So now, did your dad then kind of have some experience with weights, or did you guys have some weights at home? How did your dad kind of gain his knowledge or his experience to be able to kind of take you to the gym and help you start off?
Yeah, it's a good question. So my father played football in collegiate level at East Tennessee State. So he had lifted weights most of his, really from adolescent to adult life. So we didn't have anything in the house. We went to a little gym called Gold Star Fitness. And when I was 15, that was kind of my introduction there to training. And then I fell in love with it really, really quick. I was fortunate to see results pretty quick as well. And that's what gets you addicted. That's what makes you love it and fall in love with it, is seeing those fast results, getting stronger each week and each month. So.
Excellent. Now that's going to kind of lead us into your backstory a little bit. You already mentioned baseball. Your dad was a college athlete himself. So I'm assuming that sports kind of shaped your childhood, your upbringing, but just for myself and the listeners, where did you grow up? Talk about, did you have any siblings, anything like that? And then just touch on that childhood a little bit, talk about the sports, maybe talk about a highlight or something that kind of sticks out in your mind in terms of those younger years. Bring us up to high school and then kind of stop there, and then we'll transition from that point.
Okay. So I grew up from both my parents. My parents have been married for over 40 years. I'm very fortunate to have such a good example of a husband, father, and just a great, role model in every way. So that's very, very grateful for that. We grew up in Mount Juliet, which is right outside of Middle Tennessee. from kindergarten through 5th grade. And then my father, he actually now owns his own insurance agency. He's been in insurance for most of my life. We ended up moving to the Tri-Cities area, which is like Kingsport, Johnson City. And from middle school through high school, that was where we went. I have one sister, so it was just the two of us. Baseball, I played baseball my whole life, but really middle school and high school, that was when you started, getting more competitive. You play all year round. So that is life. Baseball is life. The other thing that's kind of interesting as far as like my backstory, the other thing that's been a big part of my life that a lot of people don't know is music. And I've played drums for over 30 years. I started when I was 8 years old, and I actually played in a lot of different bands back in the day. But that was the other thing. I always like baseball, training, and then drums. That's basically life. So.
Now, was it your dad or your mom or somebody else, close to you that kind of got you into the drums and into music? How did that come to be?
So neither one of my parents actually play an instrument. I think growing up in Nashville and around Nashville, everybody is a musician. And I just was very intrigued, and it's something that kind of came easier to me. I just enjoyed it. And so it's funny. I remember asking for Christmas for a guitar and got a freaking drum set, which is awesome. I'm grateful for that, but it's like, what parent does that? So I'm very fortunate that they got that, because I still play about every day.
Excellent, man. Now, I've never been to Tennessee. I'm currently up in Iowa. What's Tennessee like? Obviously, I know, you hear a lot about Nashville, but Nashville obviously isn't all of Tennessee, just like New York City isn't all of New York, right? I mean, is there a lot of farmland, a lot of smaller towns? Kind of for myself and probably a lot of other listeners that haven't been to Tennessee, what's it like down there in that neck of the woods?
So Tennessee is very, from Memphis to Nashville to East Tennessee, it's very, very different. Nashville is exploding with growth, which is really good for the state, but it's growing maybe faster than expected. So it doesn't feel like the Nashville that I grew up in. It's still a great, great place. Knoxville, in 2010, I moved to Knoxville, and that's kind of in between Nashville and then Tri-Cities. And man, it's a really good mix, because it's not too big, but it's big enough. But then we have the Smoky Mountains, we have all the lakes. So you do have a lot of little rural towns, but then you've also got the cities that are bigger. If you want to go to Nashville, if you want to go to Memphis, those are the two biggest cities. But you got Chattanooga close, and it's a really good place, man. You mentioned Iowa. So my wife is from Davenport, Iowa.
Oh.
So I've been up in Iowa quite a bit, man. So I know what part of Iowa are you based in?
So I'm on the complete opposite end of the state. If you're familiar with Sioux City.
Oh yeah, you're west side.
Yeah, so Sioux City is the biggest town close to where I'm at. I'm in this little town, less than 5,000 people, called Cherokee. Sioux City is about an hour away. So like growing up, going to the mall or anything like that, we would drive an hour to go to Sioux City. I've lived in Des Moines, which is the capital. Davenport's on the opposite end. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, Iowa's Iowa. You kind of get what you get, So, but it's definitely a small world. I actually had a gentleman on that's Matt Berzicott, who's a part of Camp Jansen, and I was talking to Matt just through email, discussing having him come on the podcast. He's like, "Hey, just don't have the time right now. Why don't you have one of my coaches come on, Matt?" We'd never conversed before. I found out that he was from Iowa, So it's like, it just doesn't matter where you're at or where you're from. It's a small world, and that's a pretty cool little connection, I guess we got. So let's I want to just touch on looking back on your childhood, and that's a big part of this podcast, Andrew, is kind of like behind the muscle, right? Because we kind of see, especially now with social media, we kind of see the glitz, we see the glamour, we see the muscle, we see all the highlights of everybody's life, but we all have a story, right? So looking back on your childhood, looking back on your story now as a grown man and going through a lot of life experiences. Do you feel like there's maybe one experience or a couple experiences from childhood that stick out that you feel like really molded or shaped, or maybe, had a huge impact on who you are or where you're at in life today?
It's a good question. So I don't think there's anything coming to my mind as far as specific, but I think the thing that I've learned, especially looking back now, I mentioned I'm very grateful for my parents. Both of them are entrepreneurs, so I saw both of them running their own business my adult life, or most of my adult life. So I understood, like, man, you mentioned social media. A lot of people, they just want to put the three letters CEO or owner in a title, and there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that in reality. And it's not a lot of times there's a lot more cons of that and responsibilities and risk than the opposite, than being an employee, which there's nothing wrong with either. But seeing an entrepreneur in action daily with your mom and dad, you kind of learn, like, when if you're sick, you got to go to work. You can't call somebody. It's kind of, you got to make it happen. So that's something I think I just saw, like a work ethic that was led by example. It wasn't just talked about. I saw that. That's something that was really good. And then I'm a big believer, man, in sports, organized sports for just learning discipline. That's what's so amazing about bodybuilding. It takes so much discipline. And not only just with the training, but the diet and all the other things that come with it. So I think those are the things that really kind of shaped me and have maybe given me the tools that I need to grow a company like we have in the time that we've made this happen. So
Very valuable. And I'm very thankful and fortunate myself. I have, my parents are still together, and they were business owners here in our small little hometown. So, man, like, we have such a head start in life when you have those strong, parental figures. And it's just what a blessing. And before we kind of move on to more of your story, getting into kind of the bodybuilding and the business, since we're already there, I know that, you're married, you have your own family. It's important for me to give my guests an opportunity, if they have a significant other, if they have, kids, it's important to me to give my guests that opportunity to touch on that. So why don't you just talk about your own spouse, your own family, and just the importance of that to you as a man, but also as, a business owner, as a president of a growing business. So touch on your family, if you don't mind, please, Andrew.
absolutely. So my family, my role as a father and a husband are my number one, more so than Arsenal Strength or any other business that we have. My wife from Iowa, her name is Jamie Hall. She is the co-founder of the company. She's the smartest person that I know. She's I would say she's a marketing genius, and just understands marketing to a higher level than most humans, which we are very, very fortunate to have, when we started this business. We have three children. We have a 7-year-old daughter. We have a 1-year-old son, and we have an 11-day-old little girl.
Wow.
So yeah, so we just had her on the 13th, man. So we've drinking some caffeine over here. Sleep's been a little less, but that's just part of it, and wouldn't trade it, man. They are absolutely the glue and the motivation and the fuel to everything that we do and everything that I do. So
beautiful, man. Excellent. Let's go back into your story then a little bit, Andrew. Just looking on your Instagram, just trying to prepare a little bit for our conversation today. I saw that you have competed in bodybuilding. So we kind of got ourselves up to high school and through the childhood stuff. Now talk about post high school. Where did you go to college? Did you go to college? What did those years kind of look like? And then when did you really kind of get into bodybuilding training, competitive bodybuilding? just unpack that for us if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, going back to high school really quick, when I was 16 is the first bodybuilding show that I ever competed in. As I mentioned earlier, I started seeing results fairly quick. And so I did like a local show. I was 16 years old in Kingsport, Tennessee. That was the first bodybuilding show that I ever did. I think I got second place. I mean, it was probably 3 or 4 people. It was pretty small, but that was, kind of my first taste of that. And then I actually played baseball. I went to a small college. My aspiration was to play professionally. And honestly, that was kind of the path that I was taking. I was pushed by a scout for the Pittsburgh Pirates to go the JUCO route, work on some fundamentals with hitting. I was always had a very strong arm as a catcher. So with catchers, like, you just got to be able to block the ball, and be good defensively and be okay hitting. I just needed some help and just to improve on that. But I went to a small college called Hiawassee College, went there for a semester, and man, I couldn't stand it. It made me lose the love of the game. And I if I look back, that was a regret. I think everything happens for a reason. I truly do believe that. But if I could have done it again, I would not have went there and went that path, because I probably, I could have played for a little while somewhere. But either way, after that, went back into school. I'm a music business major. That was what I studied at Middle Tennessee State, which is totally random and not at all what I am doing now. But in that time is when I started playing professionally in a band, and we traveled for several years. And that we were gone about 250, 300 days a year. So we were constantly traveling and touring. It was a band called The Showdown. And it was a great time in my life. It was, early 20s, you're getting to see the entire country. You're broke as a joke, but you're playing metal and loving life. So that was a really cool season. And then after the band is when I really started, I got to go back to school, finish school, and kind of get everything together. And that's when I started really kind of getting back into training. I think I was probably 25, 26 years at this time, and really started, like, when I went back to school to finish college, really started training, getting into it, put on a lot of size. And again, I think the biggest I ever got was like in the 290s. I think it was 298. I'm 5'10", so I was way too heavy, honestly. Looking back, I should have been, less, but it's never been that difficult for me to put on the size like that. So started competing. I want to say it was 2008, 2009, doing local shows. Always did pretty well locally. The last show, the second to last show I did, it was 2011. I won the heavyweight class, and I got beat by a guy that everybody knows, and God rest his soul, man, Dallas McCarver. Dallas was like 19 years old, freak show coming out of nowhere, and he won the overall that show. Well, the next week, this was in 2011, I went and did the junior nationals in Chicago. And I think that was the show where I realized, I'm a decent bodybuilder. I've got pretty good genetics, but I don't know if this is what I need to be doing and spending my time doing. I don't know if this is the right path for what reason. And I got smoked. I had a really tough class. Justin Compton, Kevin Jordan. Kevin Jordan won that show, the overall. He looked incredible. Justin Compton, Akeem Williams is in the class, Lloyd Dollar. It was bad. Yeah. So then you start seeing that level at the national level, and you're like, okay. And then plus Noah Flex and a lot of other, Brandon Curry, you're seeing him in the gym that you're training at. Like, you just start realizing there's levels to this game. And I realized that was not the path I needed to go. And I'm not willing to risk my body to get there, to attempt for what reason. So that was just a personal decision that I made. And I think it's important for any competitive bodybuilder. I think bodybuilding is such an amazing sport and what it is, but at the same time, you have to ask yourself, like, is it really worth the risk long term? How many guys have we seen this year that have passed way before their time, man? And you can speculate on the reasons why, but you still, we got one body, man. We got to take care of it. And when you start changing your perspective and you've got kiddos and you've got wives and you got employees that are counting on you, it just changes your perspective. So
I want to dig a little bit more into your own personal bodybuilding, and then we'll move on from there. But what was it kind of about bodybuilding? You know, the training, the lifestyle, the competing. And I know you said at a very young age, you know, you kind of were a hyper responder and you see those results. But what was it about just bodybuilding specifically, kind of the overall lifestyle that you really appreciated, enjoyed? What was it about it? Just kind of, you know, for you, Andrew?
that's a good question. I like that. For me, I think especially coming out of like a baseball situation where you're maybe in a situation where you feel like you're kind of at a different level than your team, you start kind of not wanting to be a part of a team. And the thing that's nice about bodybuilding, you can have a coach, whatever. There's really nobody to blame but yourself. And it's kind of you know, you're going against whoever. And I like that I can take matters in my own hand. If I fail, it's on me. You learn and you just keep growing and moving on. So that's the part I loved about it. The part that I hated about bodybuilding was the actual show. Like, I'm not a flashy, like, look at me type of dude. I like the training and I like the process. I don't even mind the diet. I like watching your body adapt and change. I like the pain. I mean, as weird as that sounds, you like that pushing yourself to another level. But it was the competing part and the actual showing what you've done is the part that I least enjoyed. And that was another factor for me personally. I'm like, okay, that's the thing I enjoy the least, but that's the most important as far as making this a career, or even if it wasn't a career, to get to that next level and get the pro card type of, you know, box that I wanted to check. So that's kind of my story as far as that.
Now you brought up some very well known names within the bodybuilding community, and again, going back to your Instagram, you know, I saw, you know, you with Matt Jansen, and I saw a post after Dallas had passed away, a very sentimental post about Dallas. Obviously, we know your connection with Flex Lewis. You just brought up Brandon Curry. Now, in terms of where Arsenal Strength is now, and just kind of everything that Arsenal Strength is it fair to say that bodybuilding really opened up the door for you to have this business and to kind of have the platform that you do to continue to grow and take Arsenal Strength, you know, kind of to that next level? Is bodybuilding really that conduit that provided those connections to kind of have you and your wife and your team where you're at today?
100%. And I think the reason why is not only the connections in the bodybuilding, but when when I was like, okay, I'm not going to compete. I'm going to train always. But when you change your perspective in that way, and you're like, okay, bodybuilding's that's not what we need. But I realize there's a market out there that is very underserved, that the major cardio companies, which control most of the strength companies, they don't care about the strength. It was like, we want to focus on collegiate weight rooms, NFL weight rooms, and we want to do cardio. We want you to buy 400 treadmills for your club. It's like that was all they care about. That's their life. Well, I saw a market that was really underserved, that needed some attention. And I mean, when social media really started and you're watching more people train, but you can even watch like old DVDs, like watch an old Charles Glass video and watch him carry around a pad or a roller, and he's like modifying all these machines. And I think the thing that with me, I worked for, I'm grateful for the opportunity that I worked for another equipment company for about almost 4 years and learned the industry and kind of saw things. I was grateful for that opportunity, but I also saw like opportunities that company did not want to pursue. And it wasn't, if that's not what the ownership wanted, that's totally fine. But I realized that I could do this, and I think I could do it much better. So that's what we've been doing. And I've just realized there's, you can watch somebody modify a piece of hammer strength 8 different ways. And you're like, why don't you just build the piece to fit that modification? It's so like simple minded to me, but that's basically how we realize there's a gap and what can we do to create these pieces. And circling back to your question, for people that they can get on a piece of equipment and know this is not hitting right, or it's not contracting, or you're not getting the full range of motion, or whatever the criteria could be. Bodybuilding, if I would have not had been training and gotten to train with some of the names you mentioned and just been around and watched and been a student as well, there's no way we could have really had the idea for Arsenal Strength and really pursued it without that experience of bodybuilding.
How important is it when you're a businessman or a businesswoman or a business individual, an entrepreneur? How important is it, Andrew, in regards to like networking, connecting with other people, having the right people, the right team, surrounding you? What importance or what value is that in the shoes of an entrepreneur or business person?
I think it's very, very important. I think, networking is important. I think not burning bridges. That's a very good thing to live by, is really focus on not burning bridges. And honestly, this is old school, man, but I truly believe it and I try to live it. And I suck sometimes, but I really try to be considerate of whoever, whether it's a customer, and just be kind to people and really try to connect people without expecting something in return. Like if I can connect you with somebody and it benefits you from a business, financially or whatever, that's perfect. I don't expect like, well, where's a cut or a commission or any of that crap. Like that's not what it's about, man. Like there's been a lot of people that have introduced me to people and vice versa. And that's, I'm at this point in your life, you start realizing like, you just want to be around people that want to watch other people win and legitimately, like they're not gonna, behind your back, be like, look what they're doing. It's like, there's nothing better than watching an entrepreneur win, man. Whether it's a supplement company, whether it's a clothing brand, it's really, really cool. So it's very, very important to have good morals and to network and to not burn bridges and just try to help each other out.
So let's talk about the birth of Arsenal Strength. You kind of already mentioned you had an opportunity to work for another company. You're connecting with all these different bodybuilders because you're a bodybuilder at the time. When did the idea come to mind? And then I really, really want to just hear the story of the birth of Arsenal Strength and the growth, because for me, I own a gym. I have that entrepreneurial mind. Already touched on my parents and their experiences. It's so fascinating to me, Andrew, to kind of hear the backstories of not only individuals, but the backstory of businesses and companies. So please just kind of unpack the fullness of Arsenal Strength from birth, the growing pains to kind of where you guys are at right now. And if you want to also just take that to the next level and share kind of the future vision, go for it.
No, so we formed the LLC. I think it was November of 2014 was when my wife and I actually formed the LLC and started it. But so when we started the company, obviously I mentioned there's a gap in the market that we really wanted to focus. A lot of people were like, you're crazy it's such a niche market. And people are always going to talk, and it's like, that's just words. Okay. So we saw that we actually, we sold our house. Our daughter was 6 months old at the time. We sold our house. We had some equity in the house, not a lot. That's how we started the company. No joke. We started the company in the bonus room of our house. It was just like a little home office up there. And fortunately we had some connections from previously, and I had a lot of connections in the bodybuilding world that did help me kind of reach out, and not just domestically, but internationally. But what we did in that time frame, we had a manufacturer that was based in Rock Hill, South Carolina, called Ray Crother. And Hans, he's a great dude. He had some old equipment that he was making, and he was branding it under his brand. And I'm like, well, we just need to sell it. These pieces are amazing. They need some tweaks, in my opinion. But if we can kind of tweak these and rebrand them, that was the whole vision. And to be honest with you, when we first started Arsenal Strength, the focus was, obviously the name is to be a strength company, but give you the tools that you need in your arsenal to create the physique that you want. That's kind of where it came from. My wife and I will argue. She did come up with the logo. The name I kind of came up with, so it was kind of a collaboration. But that's kind of how the name started and basically what it means. But our focus was really, my specialty was laying out and designing gyms. That's what I'm really good at, and that was something that was very underserved, especially back in 6-7 years ago. There wasn't a lot of people that were doing that, using software to do that or really could visualize. I credit that to being in the gym for 20 years. Like, you go into different gyms around the country and you're like, this place is cool. It's got a cool vibe. The layout's cool. A gym is so much more than putting equipment in a gym. The layout and the flow and the vibe is everything. So that was really the start of Arsenal Strength, how we started it. And then we had these pieces that we were rebranding and selling. Well, let's fast forward like 14 months. I get a call and he's like, I can't produce any more equipment. Like, I'm tapped out. Like, we had a good, looking back, we had a strong first 2 years, and they were at capacity. So the next step for me was kind of flying around the country, trying to find a contract manufacturer to make some products that we wanted to get made. And we found another company, I guess this was in 2016, to make product. And they did so for about 2 years. They're in Wisconsin. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that they needed some revenue. We needed a manufacturer. We were a sales and marketing company, man. That was all we were. We never really had the intentions of having our own manufacturing at that point. Well, fast forward to 2018, we had been working with a local fabricator that was making about 10 SKUs that we designed with their engineer to come up with. Well, we were having just greater success. The quality of the product was much greater at the Tennessee facility. And long story short, we ended up in February of 19 acquiring and buying the Tennessee-based, their name was USA Strength. We bought that manufacturing facility. We bought their assets. We bought the whole thing. And we brought 2 of the owners into the Arsenal family to really kind of help give us the manufacturing expertise, because Jamie and myself, that was not our thing. So once we had the manufacturing in 19, it's really been like learning that side of the business. And I've just been a student of the manufacturing, trying to understand everything in manufacturing, really. Fast forward from 2019 to March, right before COVID, we ended up getting a brand new building, because the facility that we bought was about an hour away. And there was a lot of employees driving over an hour, 2 hours to and from work, which is just a lot. So we did things like, caravan. We bought some vans to help transport. Because, man, your people are everything for a company. Like, if you don't have the culture and you don't take care of your people, you're screwed. You have to, and it's not just they are the most valuable asset that a company can have, and you've got to treat them so. So we told them we were looking to move closer to Knoxville because it was going to just help from a recruiting for future employment. Long story short, we ended up, now we're 125,000 square foot facility in Knoxville. We also merged in our partners from the manufacturing side, a machine shop. So we've got a fully automated machine shop called TGS Precision that occupies 50,000 square feet, and then Arsenal Strength occupies the 75. So we got that. So we're just rocking and rolling. And kind of that's where we're at right now. everybody the last year and a half has been such a weird freaking year. There's material shortages. There's steel prices have went even more than the wood and lumber did last year. They keep like doubling and tripling. Like they're going to go up another 10% for the end of the year. It's just like you can't, every time you check your email, you're getting a notification about steel prices going up. So there's been a lot of struggles this past year, but we've been so fortunate to have such good customers that understand and that they realize the value that we're bringing. Because man, at the end of the day, everybody's got a leg extension or a leg press. I would argue that ours is biomechanically better, stronger, especially for that demographic. But we're getting gym owners saying, "Hey, we put these pieces in their facility, and we got 13 or 14 new members just from buying that piece." And that's where you get addition. That's where the value truly is from a gym owner's perspective. So in March of 2021, we just opened up a showroom in Las Vegas. So we've got a showroom and office there. It's attached to Flex Lewis's Dragon's Lair. It's been amazing and a really, really cool. It's been great to have. It's been great to have more of a presence in the West Coast. And that's kind of our intention moving forward. I've already kind of started. We are going to be opening up a facility. Las Vegas is where we want to be. But that's where it's more than likely going to happen. So we're going to have a West Coast manufacturing as well as East Coast. We're also expanding our campus here because in a year and a half, we're almost tapped out with our space. Like we need another 50,000 square feet or so in Knoxville to kind of help create more of a campus. We have some things that we're going to kind of change and do next year to kind of help with, because our lead times have been, they're insane. Everybody's lead times are crazy. Our lead times have just been way too long for about 10 different reasons. So we're really trying to staff up. We have over 200 employees right now. I think it's like 205, 206. We're hiring 40 people. So anybody, I'm going to go ahead and pitch. Anybody knows people that want to work for a fast growing company, we are hiring like crazy. Tennessee is a really good place to live. There's no income tax. You've got a really cool governor, and just even the icing on the cake in Knoxville, our mayor is freaking Kane from WWE. So it doesn't get much better than that. But so yeah, that's kind of where we came from. We had a lot of hurdles with manufacturing, going from contract manufacturer to contract, and then finally you start getting the advice from experts, financial advisors. We have some good friends in Vegas that were like, "You guys ever thought about owning manufacturing?" And we're like, "Yeah, we've thought about it." And then you start kind of going down that path and you realize to control your destiny, you have to. So we had no debt to the company until we actually bought manufacturing. And it's been the hardest thing and the best thing we did. It's just because it's a business that we're still learning. But that's the long-winded story of kind of where we've come from and where we are.
That's perfect, Andrew. Now, some things I want to extract from what you just shared. First of all, going back to kind of something that you touched on earlier in regards to, people on social media, they want to put CEO, they want to put president in their bio, and it's kind of cool now to be an entrepreneur and to have your own business. But what you said earlier, and this is something I want to extract from you right now, is that there's actually a lot more cons than probably positives to being in that position or that role, right? And I would agree 100%. It's being an entrepreneur, being a business owner is glamorized now, especially because of social media, and it's a grind to say the least. Now, for you and for your wife, being true, genuine entrepreneurs and having a expanding, growing, exploding business right now, for you guys, like how do you guys just husband, wife, co-owners, how do you guys navigate that? How do you guys, I don't want to say hold it together, but how do you guys kind of keep the ship steady in the midst of all the cons and in the midst of all the ups and the downs and the trials and tribulations? How do you guys kind of ride the ship and keep it steady. Make sure you're taking care of your employees, taking care of your customers, really, honing that culture.
It's good. So it's definitely, it's a challenge to a lot of people are like, I don't see how you work with your wife, like your spouse, how do you make that happen? Honestly, like we're both our faith. I think that's honestly how. I think without that, I don't know. I don't even know how you would. So I credit 100% to that. To be honest with you, I think we've also learned, and she's much better at this than myself. I'll straight up. It's hard for me to turn things off. Dude, she's a master at delegator, and when she's done talking about work, it's done. I'll be like done talking about work, and then I'll see something. I'm like, we should do it. And it's like, I got to stop. So she's good about like being like, bro, you need to stop talking about work. We got to, focus on this. And then I'm always like telling myself like, okay, I've got to, work's done for now. I'm going to focus on the task at hand, whether it's changing diapers, which has been my role recently a lot, or whatever it is. So I think individuals just have to kind of learn how each other work, and once you kind of know their personality and what makes each other tick, the things to maybe stay away from and the things that are okay to talk about. It's been even harder because we're working more, a lot of our employees we're working more remote as far as inside the office. So like her office is upstairs, mine's downstairs. So there is some segregation where it's not like we're always together doing that, but you just kind of learn how to, I don't know if there's like an answer, like, oh, you just do this. I think faith for us, it's having that center that's number one. And just kind of learning each other and knowing, what boundaries or lines don't cross and when not to cross them. So hope that answers that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you more about the faith side of things, because that's something that is very important to me. I obviously on this podcast, I don't ever talk about it, but you brought it up. It's something that's
Absolutely.
very important to me. I am in the same boat. Everything starts, for me with Jesus Christ and God's word, and that really just centers me and gets me focused. And I know, where God guides, God provides, and that's where I leave everything, right? And because this is my podcast and we can talk about whatever, I want to talk about, just as much as you're comfortable talking about, as much as you want to touch on it, just touch on the importance of faith and having that be the center of your life as an individual, your family, but also just, your business, right? Because as individuals that understand the importance of faith, we know that everything starts there, and then it proceeds from there. So if you don't mind, Andrew, just touch on the importance a little bit more in depth of faith.
100%, man. No, and I appreciate you asking that. That's, I think I always have a hard time not talking about my faith. It's hard when, I try to be as strong of a Christian and live as Christ-like as I can. And I suck most of the time, which I think most of us do. But I think my heart and the intentions are always that's really the glue. We would not be in this position without that. I'm 100%. No matter, I can know every single thing about biomechanics and how to make equipment, but I truly feel like this company has got like God's hand on it, man. And I feel like the goal of this company is not just to produce amazing equipment and create jobs. And from the parts side of the business, from our TGS Precision, just creating components, it's to be a good example and to be kind to people and show love to people. That's really everything. It really, really is. And, it's been hard even for us in the past 18 months because of COVID and nobody's going to church and, trying to find the time with kids and work to really find out the center. And I every day realize like how much I need to improve on that and make that so much more of a priority in my life. Because I know that the times that I drift away from that, or when things go downhill. Like that's when the things are the hardest, is when I'm not focused on that and trying to really do. There's nothing that the plan's already laid out, and I've just got to look to him to see that. When I try to do things up is when everything gets screwed up. So that's for me personally, like the best advice that I can give is just, you know, it's so tough, man, because social media and everything right now, there's so many people that are Christians that they say that their actions are completely different than what they're saying. And man, talk is cheap. You have to truly try to live that. And I hope, you know, on my eulogy one day, people will be like, man, he honestly like was a good man. He really cared. He really tried to be kind to everybody, and tried to make people's lives better and to be as Christ-like as I can. So.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing a little bit about that, Andrew. Now, I want to be respectful of your time here. We'll kind of start heading towards the finish line. A couple more things. I do kind of want to get into the nuts and bolts of the equipment that you guys produce. But before we go there, you brought up culture. This is something that I am fascinated about. I hear Matt Jansen and kind of what they're doing with Revive and Raw. I hear Matt discuss this a lot. And it's just something that it's just fascinating to me because I truly believe culture is very important. I believe in terms of business and growing, culture is everything. So how have you guys tried to create a culture with Arsenal Strength, and what is that culture?
So we actually have we've been doing a big mission values promotion right now, really trying to promote our culture. And where we've got a holding company that owns Arsenal Strength in the other side of the business, which is the machine shop. It's been hard, and I feel like we haven't done the best job really promoting it because of COVID, and we just moved in last year. It's been like all three companies moving into one building and then fulfilling orders and making it grow. Culture is the way I look at culture, and how that I'm hoping that we are being portrayed. If you ask our employees, which is that's going to be the best answer, is talk to one of the employees and what do they feel is, you know, people being valued, people being, when they have something they want to say, that they actually can be heard. Now, a lot of times, or they're not going to maybe understand the end game or the goals, the vision for the company overall, and their opinions might not be in the same direction, but they still need to be heard. You know, some of the best insight you can get is from a new employee with fresh eyes coming in. They're like, well, why are you doing this way? And if you don't listen, you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're getting potentially valuable information given to you, and it's what you do with it is, you know, ultimately what you know, most important. But you know, it kind of goes. I'm trying to think the best way to explain this. I look at it the same way with our equipment. As far as, I kind of lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. So you've got, so the culture of our, especially more with the sales and marketing team, we've put together a sales team that is very, very diverse as far as their expertise. So, and I'm going to compare this to the industry with the life, the 800-pound gorillas that we are in competition with every day. A lot of our guys have come from that world. So I've gotten to hear about their culture, and I'm getting to hear about how it's so different with us because they feel valued. It's their name, as far as the sales and marketing rep go, it's not just a quota or a number on their head. So with that being said, like, we've got an expert that focuses more on the education side. We've got an expert that focuses more on the government GSA. We've got experts that deal with the big lifetimes, the crunches, the goals, the world gyms, the more of that health club. And then we've got more of our guys that are just doing more, you know, mom and pop type gyms, which has been our bread and butter, man. Like, just entrepreneurs trying to make things happen. And that's been our, you know, you own a gym, like, you're our customer. Like, you are what have gotten us to this position. So that's in a nutshell, I think, kind of our culture as far as the sales. I almost feel like there's the one side of the culture, the sales and marketing administrative, but then there's the culture of the manufacturing facility, which I am learning is very, very different from the sales and marketing. So we are not experts at it. We are trying to create this and really, you know, feel like people are valued and paid well and taken care of. So
Perfect. And my takeaway from that was what you said in regards to people being valued. And you've kind of alluded to this or mentioned this several times just throughout our conversation, Andrew. And that's just like, you know, allowing people to be heard, valuing people. That's your people, like within Arsenal. That's your potential customers, your customers. Because again, that's really what life comes back to, right? Andrew is like, you know, just treating people, the golden rule, right? Treating people the way that you want to be treated, not having an agenda. I truly believe if you lead with service and love, money, you know, whatever your definition of success is, all of that other stuff will come, right? If you lead with service and love, everything else will fall in place. Now, I want to ask you, this is kind of the big question, right? What makes Arsenal strength your guys' equipment, not necessarily the culture, right? We've kind of already discussed that. I want to just hit on the actual equipment. What makes Arsenal strength equipment different from Hammer Strength, Life Fitness, all the laundry list of equipment that's out there? I mean, because I get on, I'm always looking on Facebook Marketplace. I'm always looking for, you know, this and that and the old school stuff. And like I'm an equipment junkie. And but even for me, like it gets overwhelming because it's like, man, like I kind of want to, I want this piece or that piece, and can I save money? And it's just it's crazy. So what separates Arsenal Strength equipment from everybody else?
I think it's pretty simple. It's the attention to detail. It's the little things. Like I'm going to give you a specific example. Hammer Strength is a pioneer. I tip my hat to them. I have respect for them. They were the first plate-loaded equipment company in the industry. I mean, they were the first, so they are the pioneers. So you have to respect your forefathers, so to say. The problem is they never really adapted or made changes. And man, I always say this. I say this to my daughter all the time because she's extremely fast. Speed kills. And when you've got a company that can adapt as fast as we do, it's scary. And, you know, I respect Hammer Strength, but we are their worst nightmare. And that was the whole intention, like, was being able to adapt and make the changes. I mentioned, like, go watch an old Charles Glass video of him training somebody on a piece of hammer with a pad, doing different variations. We can make pieces that actually hit biomechanically the same movement without having to modify it. So the little things, whether it's an angle or it's a knurl versus a rubber grip, or you're not getting the end of your hammer strength. Every person on here has been on a hammer strength press, and it looks like a nipple on the end of the handle because the rubber keeps sliding off. And it is what it is. We have knurl grips that are 32 millimeter on your presses. We have knurl grips that are 25 millimeter on your pulls. That way you can, because most people training for real are wrapping up with straps or Versa grips. And if you have a smaller grip, you're gonna really have that grip on there. So I see some plate loaded stuff and I'm like, that's awesome. You got a 35 millimeter grip. It's like a strongman competition trying to do a row. So it's the details that have really defined that. And I think in conjunction with a strong brand presence, that's what's created this monster that's really we're seeing taking over. And man, so fortunate. We've shipped to 63 countries in 6.5 years. I mean, it's a huge blessing, and it's really, really cool to see. And the other thing, you know, the Kleenex effect where, you know, a tissue is called a Kleenex or a soda is called a Coke. We're starting to get, like, you know, it's the same with hammer, and that's where their respect is earned. Like plate loaded stuff, people are like, oh, the hammer. What's a plate loaded machine? It's not a hammer. We're starting to get that effect where it's like, you know, like Arsenal. And it's been kind of cool to sit back when kind of in the shadows and watch people say that, that you're becoming that relevant within the strength equipment in the industry. And again, it goes back to just paying attention. And man, any of our customers that have purchased from when we started to now, they've seen product change, and we listen to feedback. There's always going to be somebody that's like, that there's that guy that's like, oh, you need to do this. And it's like, okay. And we listen to the feedback, but when you've got 10 people and 10 that people that there's opinion is really strong, they're like, maybe this, then you start making changes, whether it's a little tweak, and those little tweaks are make the biggest difference. So to sum that up, it's attention to detail and being able to adapt fast.
Awesome, man. There's, you know, there's so many gems, just as you kind of are sharing your story and Arsenal Strength story. Kind of to wrap things up, I want to talk about Flex Lewis, because the truth is, if it wasn't for him and his social media and him posting, I think it was a picture with you and maybe some other people, I don't know, this podcast never would have happened, because, you know, your social media game isn't quite as large as Flex is. But just going back to connecting with people, networking, building relationships, you know, allowing people to be heard, valuing people. Talk about the relationship with Flex and how important that relationship has been in terms of the growth of Arsenal Strength and just kind of where you guys are going business wise.
So I think it was 2009, 2008 or 2009 was when I first met Flex. I don't remember. It was in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where he was training. He had just moved there. He might have moved in 07, 08 from California. And just getting to know Flex, I remember it was 2012 or 2013. I think that was a post you're referring to, was, you know, talking about equipment and, you know, a signature series or a bodybuilding line that's really focused on that. And that was kind of how those talks kind of started. And I remember calling Flex before we started the company and saying, hey, I know we've got a 6-month-old daughter, but I have an idea and I think it's really going to work. And he never doubted it one bit. He obviously understood the market. He obviously understands biomechanics as much as anybody. So it was really cool to have him never being like, I don't know if that's a good idea. He believed in it. He believed in us. And, you know, once we started the company, Flex came on. So Flex is a minority owner in the company. So Flex is a partner of Arsenal Strength. It was later in 2015 when him and Allie came on. And I mean, Flex is, from a personality standpoint, everybody loves Flex. You cannot, he's just so likable. He's such a good man, a good father, a good husband. So having him has been it's been, especially when you're starting a new brand, having somebody legitimate as him that's backing it and showing like, hey, this isn't just Joe Schmo. Like, that was extreme value. And I'm forever grateful for him believing in us and going through us. Because I mean, it's been a journey, but I think that as we continue to grow and grow the company, you know, he's in Vegas now. We're about to have we've got the office there in his gym, and now we're getting ready to have a manufacturing facility. So I think there's going to be even more involvement in the future with Flex. You know, I would love to have even more collaboration and more pieces down the line. We do have some pieces getting ready to come out that are going to be pretty hot. We've got a new line that we're working on, but even past that, like, do more collaborations with Flex on some pieces. We did the multi-flex piece with him, really hands-on to get that piece. But I look forward to that more in the future. And he's definitely helped add value. And what's the word I'm trying to look for? He's just, at a time when you're brand new, man, he makes things legitimate.
Right.
So it's grateful for that.
All right. So this is going to be the kind of the final question. This is a question coming from people that are listening that are in my shoes. I'm in a small town. I own a pretty small gym, and you know, when myself and other people in my shoes or my position, we don't have, thousands of members. We don't have thousands of extra dollars to spend on equipment and updates and all that. We're just head nose, down, grinding hard, just, trying to do the best that we can. Now, when I go and I say, I'm like, man, I see all of this new equipment. I see the Arsenal strength and I see all these different pieces. It's like, I know the cost of equipment, right? Like used equipment alone is just, it's crazy expensive. And then you start getting new pieces, like it's never going to happen. Right. So from my perspective, from people in my shoes' perspective, how can we, get some of how can we get Arsenal strength equipment? How can we get pieces, newer pieces like Arsenal strength? How can we get that type of stuff into our gyms? Maybe not completely outfitted, but maybe just a piece or two. Like, is there something that Arsenal specifically does for people in our shoes to maybe just get one piece to have in our facilities or in our gyms? What does that look like, Andrew?
So I think it's a good question. I think honestly, for the facility you're talking about, if you have a list of 10 different pieces that you need a pec deck and you need a leg extension and some other pieces. We always call them, like internally, we call them like exotic pieces. We've got some exotic pieces that either a lot of other companies don't have, or they don't have at the same level, and they're not going to be the same. Like we have one of our newest pieces, like our incline fly. It's a plate loaded incline fly piece. That I challenge that to any fly machine plate loader on the planet. They're going to lose. It's biomechanically, it pulls your anterior deltoid out of it. It completely contracts your upper chest mainly. It's just a really good piece. And there's some other modifications we've seen. I think as just a gym owner with limited budget, focus on those exotic pieces. Focus on pieces that are going to give you that are going to differentiate yourself from the gym 5 miles down the road. Because we always tell this to customers, like, end of the day, like I mentioned it earlier, a gym's more than putting equipment in a building and putting a sign on the door. If that's the case, what's different from the gym 3 miles down the road? It's got to be the atmosphere. It's got to be the cleanliness, all the things that people look for when they go to a gym, that they choose that as their place they're going to train. And so with a limited budget, if somebody said, I've got $20,000 or 15 grand to spend and I need all these pieces, I would say the more, get a leg extension, a pec deck, or some, find an old Life or Cybex, which is going to be totally fine. And that exotic piece, whether it's a vertical leg press or a pendulum squat or a hack squat, incline fly, lever row, any of those that are going to cost a little more, but they're going to help differentiate you. That's the end of the game. Because end of the day, man, it's all about the gym owner succeeding. And if we're just selling you stuff that you really don't need and your business isn't growing, what's the point of that? We have one transaction. Like, we want to grow with our customers, man, and watch other gyms get, we want to watch your following grow and your revenue grow. So you do come back. Yeah, we would love to have the repeat business, and we're grateful. That's how we've grown so quickly. But at the same time, like, watching other people win, that's what it's about, man. So focus on the specific pieces that are going to help add more value to your facility.
Awesome, man. I love it. So valuable. Andrew, we had a very thorough conversation. Is there anything that you kind of want to leave with the listeners before we wrap things up?
I would just like to say, any potential customers, any present or past, thank you. I mean, honestly, we couldn't be here without customers, gym owners. One thing that I just want to say, this is not a call out, but one thing I'm really proud that we did through COVID, a lot of companies, man, last year started freaking out. And all these companies that focus on, like, that were promoting the gym owners like yourself, they all switched to home gyms. Well, we realized really early on that's basically slapping your customers in the face that have gotten you to where you're at. Because now you're saying you don't need to belong to your gym, just get a functional trainer to rack for your garage and just quit your membership. They shifted because they were scared. And if there's one thing as a believer and just a leader, like, we're not going to be scared, man. We're not going to live in fear over anything. And we're going to focus on who we really need to focus on. So we ended up doing like a stimulus package last year to let's help the gym owners that actually need it, that are fighting through these shutdowns and everything else going on. So I'm really proud that we grew so much with the same exact game plan and vision without shifting to, yeah, did we sell more equipment into a home over the past 18 months? Yes. But it's been so cool to see so many gyms still being business, still growing and doing that. So I just say thank you. Thank you for having the courage to stand up and do what's best for your business. And thank you also for, our lead times have been so extended. And I'm just grateful that people are understanding and that they're waiting to get these pieces in because they know it's going to add value, but that doesn't go unnoticed. And I'm just grateful for that. So thank you. And thank you, whatever we can do as a company, just let us know. You're never going to get a robot talking to you. You're going to talk to a human. That's very, very important. So I just appreciate you, man, having me on and getting to share the story very, very much.
Absolutely. You're very welcome, Andrew. Thank you for your time. If people want to connect with Arsenal Strength, if people want to connect with you, where can they find all of that information?
Absolutely. So myarsenalstrength.com, the website, we have all the products on there. We don't have pricing. I'm just going to clear this up too. I see all the time, like, why don't you have pricing on the thing, on your page? We originally did. When you start getting into, and I'm clearing this up for all the companies that get this question, when you have dealers and other people that are selling product, you have to protect them with pricing. And that's if you go to lifefitness.com, you ain't gonna find pricing. You're gonna have to call them direct, or you're gonna have to call a dealer. It's the same exact thing. We're not trying to hide anything. It's just part of it. But the website, we have all the inquiry. You can go and add to cart each piece, and that'll go to one of our team members. They'll get you back pricing, freight, answer any questions. I highly recommend with our team, call and talk to them and tell them your plans. What's your vision for your facility? Like, what's your goals? We can really, really help you advise because we're seeing what works and doesn't work around the world. So they're not just the one thing I can promise you is we're just not gonna ever sell somebody a bunch of stuff they don't need. We're gonna really try to guide them in the right direction. So go to the website, talk to one of our team members. That's the best advice I can give. Go to our, the Instagram, the Facebook page and all that. But yeah, that's going to be the best way.
Awesome, Andrew. Thank you so much again, my man, for coming on, sharing your personal story, sharing Arsenal Strength story. It's greatly appreciated. Okay.
Thank you so much, Matt. You have a great day.
For sure. So listeners, thank you so much once again for watching, listening Behind the Muscle podcast. Two things I just want to ask of you really quickly, if you haven't done so already. If you're watching and listening to this on YouTube, if you haven't done so already, just hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to this and it's not on YouTube, go to YouTube, subscribe. That's really where I'm dumping all of this content, all of these amazing interviews. You're going to get it firsthand through the Behind the Muscle podcast YouTube channel. Second favor, take this episode. I mean, if you're a bodybuilder, a business owner, just somebody that's just going through life, there was so much wisdom, so much insight that Andrew shared, so many golden nuggets. Please take this episode, share it on all of your social media platforms, especially Instagram. Tag Andrew, tag Arsenal Strength, tag Behind the Muscle so that we know people listened, people gained value from this episode. All of that is greatly appreciated. And finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.